Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Phil and welcome to Grounded, the series which looks at airlines of yesteryear. This episode will take a look at XL Airways following their 2006 management buyout and rebranding as Extra Large. As you may recall from our previous episode, XL Airways was rebranded in November as XL Airways. It and its parent XL Leisure Group were subjected to a convoluted management buyout. The Icelandic bank Landsbanki would help finance the deal, with Imskip providing a loan guarantee of $280 million, which would have to be paid back by March 2008. Imskip also agreed to finance XL's operations over the winter 2006 and 2007 season. XL France and XL Germany would be sold in separate transactions to the XL Leisure Group, with France going for €87.2 million and Germany $21.7 million. The group was then placed in a Gibraltar-registered holding company known as XL Holdings Limited, which in turn was a subsidiary of XL Holdings, another witty name brought to you by the same guy behind Peach Air. Nonetheless, the takeover was completed on the 22nd December 2006, and things were looking up for the UK's third largest travel firm. The summer of 2007 would see XL open its first overseas bases, one in Dublin and one in Larnaca. The Dublin base was filling in a gap left behind by Monarch Airlines, who had been operating several charter flights from there but had to pull out due to its own restructuring programme. The Cypriot base was also filling a gap, one which roots lay with XL itself. Back when Libra were a small shareholder in what was still Sabre Airways, they used them to help establish Cyprus's first independent airline, Helios Airways. Using the UK team's experience, they bought in a couple of Boeings and operated them successfully for 5 years until the tragic crash of Flight 522 in 2005. The airline was temporarily grounded and then rebranded as AJet in 2006. However, the Cypriot government permanently grounded the airline in November that year, forcing XL to take over and then open a Cypriot base for the upcoming 2007 season. During 2007, XL Airways carried 3.3 million passengers, which while being the same number as the year before, the airline had actually cut some seat numbers so benefited from increased load factors. The fleet rationalization started well, with the Boeing 747s inherited from Air Atlanta Europe withdrawn towards the end of the summer. The 757s were on the way out too, with most of them going over the winter, and just one hanging back as a backup until early 2008. The Boeing 767 fleet was cut as well. One 300 series was withdrawn in late November, and one of the two remaining 200s was off for a new life in the Seychelles, leaving the long-haul fleet with just 3 aircraft. This was fine over the winter, and plans were in place for summer 2008. XL France would operate an Airbus A330 on the UK Airlines behalf and cover the Manchester and Glasgow programmes, while the two 767-300s would operate from Gatwick. The single 767-200, after returning from the lucrative Hajj contract, would be a cover aircraft and also operate some spot hire flights during the summer. The future looked better and better for XL. The restructuring efforts were going to schedule, and their image had drastically improved after the bad year that was 2006. XL had even signed a 3-year sponsorship deal with West Ham United Football Club worth £12 million. The London club had an existing connection to XL, given that the Icelandic consortium which owned the club was led by a chairman and majority shareholder of Landsbanki and Imskip. But those small cracks which began during the management buyout over a year earlier had started to get bigger and bigger, with the revelation that the XL Leisure Group had made a £23.6 million loss for the previous financial year. The summer of 2008 began with the arrival of the first ever UK-registered Boeing 737-900ERs when GXLAP arrived on the 11th of May, with its first revenue flight 4 days later on the 15th. The second, GXLAR, would arrive on the 3rd of June, bringing the XL Airways UK fleet to 18 aircraft, including the 4 737 aircraft on summer leases from Sunwing and Miami Air. On August 28th, XL announced they would be scrapping their Caribbean programme from that November. The reason cited from XL was that the economic downturn, which had just started to hit, combined with the rising fuel costs, were to blame. This was partially true. One of the 767-300s was due to be withdrawn in early November and replaced by the shiny new Airbus A330s. However, XL had already arranged to sublease these to Finnair for the winter, effectively guaranteeing a steady source of income. It also didn't help that the various island authorities withdrew their subsidiaries for UK-bound flights, but the timing of this announcement couldn't have been worse, as it was the exact day Zoom Airlines UK ceased operations and set the headline writers into overdrive. Those cracks were getting bigger and bigger. It was revealed then that XL still hadn't repaid Imeskip its $280 million loan, which had been due in March 2008. Barclays Bank had decided after several defaulted payments to convert their credit facility to a loan, and even went as far as bringing in a restructuring firm, then known as Kroll, to take a closer look at XL. They also did administration and liquidation too. That'd come in handy. The airline continued to plod on while the group's financial condition was becoming a daily feature in the newspapers. Despite all this, the XL management continued to insist a deal was just hours or days away until late on the night of Thursday, September 11, 2008, when the plug was pulled. XL Airways was grounded. The administrators were called in, the aircraft on the ground were impounded, and as of 1 a.m, the morning of the 12th, over 1,500 employees were made redundant. The last XL Airways flights already airborne would continue to the UK, with the final one being GVKNI coming back into Gatwick from the Caribbean. The XL Airways France-operated flight from Orlando to Manchester was diverted to Paris to avoid being impounded in the UK. BOPP, the 767-200 used on backup duties, had been called into action earlier the day before and was in Orlando. It was taxiing out to the runway when air traffic control demanded they return to the gate where the news was broken to all on board. That was the only XL bird not to come home. So, what went wrong? Well, quite a few things went wrong for XL, but without a doubt, the biggest cause of their downfall was the ill-thought-out management buyout at the end of 2006. The XL management didn't have anywhere near the money needed to buy the group from Imeskip. The fact they thought they'd be able to repay a $280 million loan in less than a year and a half is absurd, but believe me, there is more to the story. Following the MBO, the XL Leisure Group found itself highly leveraged with a lot of debt. This is a common issue with companies following both management buyouts or leverage buyouts, as the target company finds itself saddled with debt. The XL Leisure Group had made an operating loss of £11 million in 2006. This more than doubled to £23.6 million in 2007, and by July 2008 had made an operating loss of nearly £34 million, with the group's losses at that point being £41.3 million. If the group was losing money in the summer season, there was no way they could survive the winter without some serious financial backing. XL had found itself at the start of September 2008 in a very bad position. It was later revealed by the administrators that the company had owed nearly £400 million in debt and guarantees to a multitude of different lenders, with Barclays and Straumur being the primary creditors. The Icelandic financial meltdown was in full swing by this point, and Landsbanki were mere weeks away from being taken over by the Icelandic authorities themselves. The summer of 2008 was a tough one for everyone. It was when the global recession had started to bite. The oil prices had risen to over $100 a barrel due to the hurricanes causing disruption to production in the Gulf of Mexico. It didn't help anyone's confidence with two high-profile losses when EOS Airlines collapsed earlier in the summer, followed by Silverjet merely a month later. Zoom would cease operations on 28th of August, the same day XL made that ill-timed announcement that it was axing its Caribbean network. The charter market in the UK hits its peak in the summer months from May to the end of October, with the peak demand coming during the school holidays in late June to early September. The main choice of destinations for a UK charter airline around this time would be the Mediterranean resorts, as well as Greece, the Canary Islands, Cyprus, Tunisia and Egypt. Long-haul destinations are pretty much popular all year round, but for an airline focusing mainly on short and medium-haul flights, the summer is a crucial period in which to build cash reserves ready for a slow and austere winter. With no easy access to credit to keep going, add to that neither Straumur nor Imeskip could afford to front XL any more money, it was clear the game was over and the administrators were called in. XL France and XL Germany were spared administration, as they were separate enough entities and the pair were taken over by Straumur. XL Germany would operate for 5 more years before ceasing operations in 2013. XL Airways France is still operating today, remarkably with the same name and livery as in 2008. XL Airways UK, however, was dragged down, and 11 companies within the group were placed into administration that night, with only one to make it through. That was Travel City Direct, which Virgin scooped up in a cut-price deal in December. It was with deeply ironic timing of 10 years to the date of XL entering administration that it was announced that Travel City Direct would be absorbed completely into the Virgin Holidays brand and cease to exist. XL's auditors, KPMG, had resigned in mid-October 2006, citing financial irregularities. KPMG had completed the accounts report for 2005 and was made aware in May 2006 that there had been some issues with the arrangements between XL Airways Group, its subsidiaries and a supplier, but worse, that the full extent of these arrangements were withheld from KPMG, and that certain directors had misrepresented the details of the ones that were made aware to the auditors. IMSCIP established a committee to investigate these arrangements and issued a preliminary report that these arrangements had misrepresented the value of the companies. On that basis, XL's figures would certainly need revising. XL and IMSCIP advised KPMG that they would not be investigating further and refused KPMG permission to review and revise the financial statements, and thus they resigned with immediate effect. The initial investigation revealed that the company had overstated its net assets by £5.25 million, and that the operating profit had also been overstated by a further £7.5 million. BDO Stoy Hayward, who had become the company's auditors, included this information in their 2006 financial statement. They also revealed that there had been an error in the 2005 report, and that basically the administrative expenses had increased by £6.74 million. It also highlighted that due to the directors writing back the 2005 dividend, it increased the company's assets by a further £5.38 million. This was a perfectly legal accounting trick though, in which if the final dividend is declared after the balance sheet date but before the financial statements are authorised for issue, the dividends are not recognised as a liability on the balance. On the 20th of January 2006, IMSCIP was floated on the Icelandic Stock Exchange. Was there some underhandedness in which the value of XL was artificially high to raise the share price of IMSCIP at their IPO? Probably, but unfortunately, the financial records of the Icelandic company are not available, and the accounts for XL have already driven me to the brink of insanity. One thing for certain, though, is that enough eyebrows were raised in the wake of XL's collapse that the Institute of Chartered Accountants referred BDO Stoy Hayward to the Accountancy and Actuarial Discipline Board to examine their audit of XL's accounts for the year prior to October 2007. It had been revealed that XL's 2007 accounts were signed off without qualification by BDO on May 23, 2008. The balance sheet showed that the tour operator had increased net assets from £19.6 million to £44.2 million by the year end. Much of this balance sheet strengthening came as intangible assets had almost trebled from £34.6 million to £95.6 million. This was more than enough to offset current net liabilities, which had ballooned from £8.1 million to £59.3 million. The AADB completed its investigation in 2010, and it did not identify any misconduct on the part of BDO. It also told the party line that XL had operated in a volatile marketplace, and that its failure was a result of the economic downturn, increased fuel costs, and not being able to obtain any more funding. I'll give a quick shout out to Peter Owen, the chief executive of XL from March 2007 until mid-2008, who was forced to stand down as he was about to declare himself bankrupt. He happened to be chairman of the other airline, Silverjet, which ceased operation a mere 2 days after his bankruptcy proceedings and was believed to owe them at least £240,000. Looking back on it now 10 years later, it's clear XL was a house of cards. They got a lot of lucky breaks over the years. Sabre were most fortunate to get that Gold Trail deal, in which not only led to the formation of Peach Air, but gave them an extra bit of cash. Then they made close ties with a tour operator at the right time, when all the major charter carriers were doing the same. Then they finally struck gold when they were taken over by the cash-rich Avion Group. That management buyout of 2006 was what sealed XL's fate. Suspicions of dodgy dealings for an overpriced company aside, there was no way XL could have repaid that loan in time. Adding the global economy taking a turn for the worst and the Icelandic banks not in a position to help, it was just inevitable. XL Airways UK Limited was officially dissolved on Thursday 26 June 2014. I'd say there's a final twist to this story, but it actually seems more like a corkscrew, but you'll have to wait for the next episode for that as I've gone on far long enough. Until next time, thank you for watching.